Agent Orange and dioxins is not only about the increased risk of deadly and exotic cancers. A long and tragic list of human and animal diseases has been positively linked to dioxins, including damaged DNA, neurological diseases, birth defects, autism, learning disabilities, and more. In 2009, Veterans for Peace passed 2 resolutions in support of H.R. 2254 and H.R. 1428 to address thousands of service-connected disabilities of Parkinson's disease due to exposure to Agent Orange and dioxins illegally sprayed as chemical aerosols by U.S. military aircraft over civilians, villages, and farms. These poisonous chemicals were illegally and criminally sprayed from military aircraft over Vietnam and 3 more countries for which Congress had not authorized funds for military actions, including Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand.
For nearly 10 years, the U.S. sprayed more than 19 million gallons of Agent Orange, which contains the lethal chemical dioxin, on Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand. Not just jungles were sprayed, 3,181 villages and as many as 4 million people were also directly sprayed. This spraying continued long after Vietnamese and American doctors began reporting the destructive effects on humans, and for nearly 2 years after American scientists proved the Agent Orange connection to birth defects. And it wasn't just the infamous Agent Orange that was used. The Vietnamese were also subject to Agent White, Agent Purple, Agent Pink, Agent Blue, and Agent Green. A virtual rainbow of death was rained down on the Vietnamese. Rice was the specialty of Agent Blue because the sturdy Vietnamese rice proved resistant to many of the other herbicides. The purpose was to deny the Vietnamese food supply, as well as the protection of the jungle cover from U.S. air assaults.
This poison was produced by many major American corporations, including Dow, Monsanto, and Uniroyal. During the war, there were many protests against its production in the U.S. I am today very proud to say I went to jail in 1970 for my part in a sit-in against Dow.
While hundreds of millions have been paid to the U.S. and other victims of Agent Orange by the U.S. government and the companies that made it, not 1 penny in compensation has been paid to the main victims of these war crimes, the Vietnamese. When Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld visited Vietnam in 2006, he again refused to consider the Vietnamese application for compensation, although he did demand that they do more to find the last 40-year-old remains of American MIAs. The Vietnamese still have more than 300,000 MIAs of their own, not to mention thousands of little victims of Agent Orange born since the war.
29th Avenue, residents report when they were growing up as children or when they were young, seeing this stuff being buried. And one of the residents' nephew that worked there unequivocally stated to her that this was barrels of Agent Orange being buried, and he died at age 21 from multiple cancer. He joined the army and he was sent home to die. And the family believes that it was because the exposure to all this contamination. And many residents show, when they go to the doctor, they are showing signs of Agent Orange poisoning or contamination.
The EPA is announcing officially that they're going to start in the future looking for the barrels that residents have reported that they witnessed being buried in the late 70s, early 80s.
But what? Good, they dug them up already.
The Cabot Koppers Superfund site is known to the EPA as a source of human and animal toxicity. One is groundwater contamination caused by almost 100 years of wood products treatment, where coal tar and associated toxins have sunk deep into the ground to threaten the drinking water supply for the entire north-central Florida region. The second is dioxins produced as a byproduct of Koppers wood treatment facility as a hazard to human health. These findings are acknowledged to be the original basis for the EPA designation as a Superfund site in 1983. What is not acknowledged is the barrels of Agent Orange dioxins secretly buried on the Koppers site in the 1970s, a significant issue of contamination never acknowledged by the EPA. Due to the institutionalized secrecy to the existence of Agent Orange barrels, it's not possible to distinguish one dioxin source from the other. For that reason, we are required to assume that a recent 2011 scientific analysis revealing a 2-mile radius of dioxin contamination inside dwellings and homes could be from a combination of both sources, i.e. Koppers wood treatment dioxins, or dioxins escaping from aging or damaged barrels of Agent Orange buried on the Koppers Superfund site. In this video, comments about dioxins or Agent Orange are used interchangeably to describe either or both toxic sources. Barrels were actually buried right at the perimeter of the property, right on this road.
I don't know what it was, but it was a black barrel they put inside of
Orange
Okay, so each orange barrel had a black
barrel in it.
I got you. So what were they using to block your view? That blue tarpaulin?
It was a thing like that over there. A blue thing.
Like that blue stuff over there?
Yeah.
And they
pushed up a mound of dirt or whatever to keep us from seeing over in there when they start
okay,
working on that
they
side.
saw you looking at it and they didn't like that because you were taking pictures?
Well, I think the whole thing is they're going to say, well, there's no
proof
worries for the resident as far as Agent Orange contamination because we did not find Agent Orange barrels being buried there as with other Koppers Superfund sites. Systematically already removed.
So they wouldn't find
So they
anything?
wouldn't find anything to keep the cover.
No weapons of mass dioxin? Of course, now the residents understandably fear that the excavation of possibly damaged Agent Orange barrels has released even more dioxins into the atmosphere and possibly downward towards the Floridan aquifer.
AMIC, who did most of the scientific data collecting and analyzing for Koppers and Beezers, they were indicted for actually falsifying test data from Superfund site, from over 100 Superfund sites in the nation, whose data and whose science was the feasibility study and the records of decision based on, because I know that they couldn't have had replaced years collected by AMIC when they were dismissed middle of last year. No one is answering that. And when the president of the neighborhood, Sandra Watts Kennedy, asked in writing of Dr. Musa and the Alachua County EPD, he actually passed the question on through an email, which he copied her, to Scott Miller from the EPA. And what happened then was Scott Miller insisted that she needs to invoke the Freedom of Information Act to ask these questions. Stalling tactics, because this way they can take about a year.
Right.
As long as they're allowed by the law.
And Dr. Stephen Roberts, you say?
Stephen Roberts, Human Toxicology Department. We have memos that were found that were never made public. And we asked why was this information being suppressed. He claimed in his memos that the real cancer risk for residents, the true cancer risk, is 3,610.
See, here comes somebody now. Who is this? Tetra Tech. It's no secret that Tetra Tech is not just cleaning up Koppers, they're also heavily involved in the biomass industry. An interesting coincidence.
Level 1 hazmat suits were being used in our neighborhood immediately adjacent the properties to test water wells. And when the city did any road work, especially when I believe it 26th Avenue, there was a problem with the sewer. When they came to do any sewer work into our neighborhood, they were wearing level 1 hazmat suit to do the work of 3 to 4 days. So Marianne, can you describe some of the illnesses that you have experienced at your family?
For me, myself personally?
Everybody.
I have a rash that's on my chest right now, and I have some kind of dark spots, the skin on the front of my legs is just black, dark. And my skin on my gets sore. I have headaches, nosebleeds.
Nosebleeds?
Yeah.
How often? When do you get the nosebleeds?
Mainly at night. Like when I get up early, like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, I go in the bathroom, my nose is bleeding.
And what about your husband with the big?
This big thing on his back when he got busted, it had a stem on it this long, white, and a black head on it. We still don't know what it is. They got to bring the report back to tell us what it was. We still don't know what it is. And it's, I don't know, some type of cancer or what.
When did he have that operation?
It's been a couple of weeks. But
Really? It's only a couple of weeks?
Yeah. So it's just like burst out of there.
And he had one on his chest too.
It's still there.
The chest one's still there?
Yeah.
Because he told me that they were going to have to biopsy it.
This one on the chest they want
because
to do.
They don't know.
One in his back burst.
Because they don't know what it is. They couldn't figure out what it
The
was.
stem came out. They don't know what it is.
Okay. Is the lab result back yet?
No.
You call me when the lab result comes in.
This will go in back on the 25th. Of July.
Several years ago, the city of Gainesville Public Utility, Gainesville Regional Utilities, or GRU, proposed a biomass plant as a way to provide more power as the city's customer base increased. In 2008, GRU's energy expert, Ed Regan, also cautioned that a biomass plant could lose the city $110 million if gas prices remained low and carbon legislation was never passed. But now that both of these conditions for a $110 million loss have been met, the City Commission seems stubbornly determined to allow the biomass plant to go forward anyway. Of Questions about local government corruption were raised in 2010 when it was revealed that a critical opt-out clause inserted by a unanimous vote of the Commission in 2008 to protect the public's interest was secretly removed from the final contract. The Sunshine Law was avoided by the city at every turn, and public notice was exceedingly difficult. Furthermore, the American Renewables contract was signed by the City Commission and then extensively redacted by GRU with full consent of the mayor and commission in order to hide elements of the negotiation from public view. Now, what are the chances that Tetra Tech, a company with a large biomass sector and contracted by Beezer East to resolve the Koppers Superfund site issues, has absolutely no interest in Gainesville's biomass plant project? Since the biomass contract is with a limited liability corporation, or LLC, American Renewables, further investigation is needed to rule out unlawful activities involving the city, GRU, Beezer, Tetra Tech, and American Renewables. Silent agreements between two or more of these parties could explain why the City Commission has avoided canceling the biomass project on the frank merits of a $110 million loss to the city. If the biomass plant is allowed to continue, the outcome could be a massive debt service to be amortized on the backs of GRU retail customers and local businesses. Listen once again to Mary Ann Jones and what she had to say about those Agent Orange barrels being excavated.
I don't know what it was, but it was some black barrel they put inside of it.
Orange container. So each orange barrel had a black
barrel in it.
I got you.
It turns out that Mary Ann's entire family were witnesses to the excavation of barrels in late 2010 by Tetra Tech crews. Their story is backed up by a January 12, 2011 Google Earth image showing aggressive site work where the soil is disturbed almost everywhere, including the area where the Jones witnessed the excavation. This cluster of 21 objects is evidence of barrels or hay bales used to contain on-site contaminants during the excavation of Agent Orange barrels. The Vietnam War was an American Holocaust. The many Gainesville locals who told their story of seeing barrels of Agent Orange loaded off the train to be buried in the ground at Koppers in the 70s are more than believable. Their stories are a testimony to government corruption from top to bottom when the military-industrial complex speaks. The best data available has been ignored by the city and the county environmental protection department because it shows the true devastating extent of the contamination. Commissioned by the victims themselves and at their own expense, Caldwell Labs followed strict EPA protocol to perform a thorough scientific analysis of the dust within a 2-mile radius from the Superfund site at Ground Zero. The $300,000 analysis that could have been ordered by the County Environmental Protection Department years ago finally reveals dioxins and other toxins in dwellings over 2 miles away from Koppers in all directions. This confirms that local governments are guilty of nothing less than a tacit cover-up of a known health hazard that continues to inflict damage to victims and the fetus of the unborn at constant risk of horrible birth defects. One resident delivered a stillborn child with deformities so severe that the physician was reluctant to allow the mother to view it. She did and is now under psychiatric counseling. In Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand, severe birth defects are a new way of life or degraded existence thanks to the multi-generational DNA damage inflicted by Agent Orange. Justice for war crimes committed in Gainesville will only come when the cover-up is ended. This includes the immediate evacuation and relocation of all families from dwellings in neighborhoods adjacent to Koppers, followed by a long overdue test for dioxins inside every Alachua County school, starting with Stephen Foster Elementary. The city of Gainesville should settle with Beezer for nothing less than complete removal of toxic soils from the site in order to restore land use to 100% parity. Finally, the indictment and prosecution of all elected city, state, and federal officials, employees, and other parties who willingly conspired to obstruct justice in the matter of the decades-long unresolved issues at the Koppers Superfund site. General Smedley Butler said it best, war is a racket. It's time to stop the racketeering in Gainesville.